If you heard me mention our Good Friday service earlier, and if you came to that service, we read through the 7 last words of Christ, or the seven last sayings that Jesus said while he was on the cross. And one of those things was, "It is finished." Jesus said, "It is finished." See, Jesus was wrongly accused of crimes against the emperor and crimes against the church. He was beaten. He was humiliated. He was spat on. They cast lots for his clothing. And yet he willingly laid down his life for you and for me, for each and every one of us. He was hung on the cross to die. Now, the interesting thing about the cross is that it's not designed simply to kill someone. It's designed to kill them slowly. It's a painful, torturous death. And Jesus laid down his life. He willingly went to the cross for each and every one of us. Now, there are 4 different accounts of Jesus' death and resurrection in the Bible. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Each one of them has different details. Each one of them seems to maybe say something that the other one doesn't say. It's almost like they were trying to correct each other. And you'll hear me jump back and forth between the different accounts because there are details in each one that aren't in the others. But the thing that's the same in all 4 of them is that Jesus is alive. When they go to the tomb to find his body, he isn't there. In John's account, in chapter 20, there's a detail that isn't in the other ones. And it says, while the cloth that had covered Jesus' head was folded up and lying apart from the other wrappings. So they went in to find his body, and the shroud that was over Jesus was laying to the side. Something like you see these cloths laying up here. But the cloth that was wrapped around his head was folded up neatly and laid to the side. There's a couple of reasons for that detail being included. For one, if somebody had come and stolen the body, most likely they wouldn't have taken the time to fold up that cloth and set it to the side. But there's another reason. In the original Hebrew, there was almost always another layer, another reason. And the other reason has to do with the relationship between master and servant. In those days, every Jewish boy would have understood the analogy, would have understood the metaphor of the folded napkin. See, the servants would get the meal ready for the master, set the table, have the napkin, the utensils, everything in just the right place, just the way the master liked it. And then the servant would wait just out of sight for the master to finish eating. And if the master got up from the table and he was done eating, he would wipe his mouth, clean his beard, wad up that napkin, and drop it there on the table to signify he was done. And that servant would not dare touch that table until the master was finished eating. But if instead the master neatly folded up his napkin and set it to the side, that signified to the servant that he wasn't finished, that he was coming back. The folded napkin that was wrapped around Jesus' head signifies that he's coming back. I'm coming back. He's coming back. And that brings me to our scripture lesson. I told you that I was going to expand on it just a little bit. I'm actually going to begin in Matthew chapter 27, verse 50, and go through chapter 28, verse 20. Then Jesus shouted again, and he released his spirit. At that moment, the curtain in the sanctuary of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. The earth shook, rocks split apart, and tombs opened. The bodies of many godly men and women who had died were raised from the dead. They left the cemetery after Jesus' resurrection, went into the holy city of Jerusalem, and appeared to many people. The Roman officer and the other soldiers at the crucifixion were terrified by the earthquake and all that had happened. They said, "This man truly was the Son of God." And many women who had come from Galilee with Jesus to care for him were watching from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of James and John, the sons of Zebedee. As evening approached, Joseph, a rich man from Arimathea, who had become a follower of Jesus, went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. And Pilate issued an order to release it to him. Joseph took the body, wrapped it in a long sheet of clean linen cloth. He placed it in his own new tomb, which had been carved out of the rock. Then he rolled a great stone across the entrance and left. Both Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting across from the tomb and watching. The next day, on the Sabbath, the leading priests and Pharisees went to see Pilate. They told him, "Sir, we remember what that deceiver once said while he was still alive. After 3 days I will rise from the dead. So we request that you seal the tomb until the third day. This will prevent his disciples from coming and stealing his body, and then telling everyone he was raised from the dead. If that happens, we'll be worse off than we were at first." Pilate replied, "Take guards and secure it the best you can." So they sealed the tomb and posted guards to protect it. Early on Sunday morning, as the new day was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went out to visit the tomb. Suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, rolled aside the stone, and sat on it. His face shone like lightning, and his clothing was as white as snow. The guards shook with fear when they saw him, and they fell into a dead faint. Then the angel spoke to the women, "Don't be afraid. I know you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He isn't here. He is risen from the dead, just as he said would happen. Come, see where his body was lying. And now go quickly and tell his disciples he has risen from the dead, and he is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there. Remember what I have told you." The women ran quickly from the tomb. They were frightened, but also filled with great joy. And they rushed to give the disciples the angel's message. As they went, Jesus met them and greeted them. And they ran to him, grasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Don't be afraid. Go tell my brothers to leave for Galilee, and they will see me there." As the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and told the leading priest what had happened. A meeting with the elders was called, and they decided to give the soldiers a large bribe. They told the soldiers, "You must say, Jesus' disciples came during the night while we were sleeping, and they stole his body. If the governor hears about it, we'll stand up for you so you won't get in trouble." So the guards accepted the bribe and said what they were told to say. Their story spread widely among the Jews, and they still tell it today. Then the 11 disciples left for Galilee, going to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some of them doubted. Jesus came and told his disciples, "I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you. And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Now, in that entire reading, what I would say is the most important line is the one that says, "He isn't here." He isn't here. They came to look for Jesus' body at the tomb, but he wasn't there. He had risen from the dead. The angel said to the women, "He isn't here." And again, in John's account, we just read Matthew's account, but in John's account, there's another little line, another little quote from Jesus that's not in the other ones. And Jesus says, when the women run to him and grasp him and cling to him, Jesus says, "Don't cling to me. for I haven't yet ascended to the Father. But go and find my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. Don't cling to me, but go and tell my brothers. Go and tell. Share the good news. Go and make disciples of all nations. Go, share. Now there's several instances in each one of these accounts of people running. The women ran from the tomb. When they saw Jesus, they ran to him. In John's account, Peter and the disciple whom Jesus loved were running to the tomb. They were racing. There's even a line about who got there first, as if it matters. But that sounds like brothers. Everything has to be a race. There's always someone running. Now, I don't know about you. I used to be a runner. That was my form of exercise. Now I'd rather just lift weights, not worry about running. But imagine if you found something that was worth running for. Imagine if you found something that was so important that you had to run to someone to tell them the good news. Imagine having something so great, so good, so unbelievable to tell someone that you had to run to them to tell them because you could not wait, because it couldn't wait. That's what the Easter story is all about. It's about the good news that Jesus Christ died, that Jesus Christ rose from the dead to save each and every one of us. Hear the good news. Christ has died. Christ has risen. Christ will come again. Let us pray.